Is the Atomos Shogun AV19 the kind of gear that will actually move your workflow forward, or is it just another pricey box you'll end up sidelining? Who should really consider dropping a Rackmount 4K HDR monitor quarter switcher into their rig, and who would be better off skipping it altogether? And for the everyday creator who's not chasing Hollywood budgets, does the price make sense? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first heard about the Shogun AV19, the thing that stuck in my mind was the promise of one unit does it all. In the world of small to medium productions, you're constantly juggling a monitor, a recorder, maybe a separate switcher, and a handful of audio interfaces. The idea of a single 19-inch rack unit that can show you a true-to-life HDR picture, capture 6K raw footage, and let you switch between sources sounded like a workflow shortcut. But shortcuts only help when they line up with the way you actually shoot. Let's start with the people who will get the most out of this machine. If you run a mobile documentary crew that shoots with multiple cameras, say a Sony FX9 for the main story, a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera for brawl, and an Instagram-style action cam for on-the-go angles, you'll need a hub that can ingest those signals, let you monitor them in real time, and record a high-quality backup without pulling a separate recorder for each source. The Shogun's 19-inch 38402160 capacitive touchscreen does exactly that. You can feed HDMI or SDI from each camera, see a 10-bit HDR image, and apply a custom 3D LUT on the fly. That means you get a reliable preview of how the final grade will look, instead of guessing on a consumer monitor that can't display the full dynamic range. The built-in ProRes and DNX recording paths are another huge plus for that kind of setup. I've seen crews hook the Shogun directly to a Blackmagic designed ATM Mini, use the switcher function to cut between two live feeds, and let the unit record a ProRes 422 HQ stream of whatever's on air. The result is a clean, edit-ready file that bypasses the need to capture separate recordings from each camera later. For anyone who's tired of syncing multiple camera files in post, that's a time saver you can actually feel in the edit bay. Audio-centric shooters will also appreciate the XLR inputs and built-in speakers. On a typical shoot, you might have a boom mic, a lavalier, and a wireless transmitter. The Shogun lets you bring those into the same rack, monitor levels in real time, and even use the built-in LTC, linear timecode, to lock everything to a master clock. That's a practical workflow improvement you don't get from a cheap monitor that only displays video. Now, let's talk about who should probably walk away. If you're a solo creator who shoots with a single camera, edits on a laptop, and rarely needs to record separate high bitrate files, the Shogun's feature set is overkill. A portable 7-inch Atomos Ninja V or even a good external SSD recorder will cost a fraction and fit in a camera bag. The Shogun's rack mount form factor means you have to allocate a 19-inch space in a case, run dedicated power, and deal with the extra weight on location. That's a logistical hurdle that many freelancers simply don't want to manage. Budget is another decisive factor. The Shogun sits in the high three-figure range, and its rating on Amazon just 3.4 stars from 4 reviewers hints that early adopters have been mixed on the value proposition. Those who bought it for its all-in-one promise sometimes found themselves paying for features they never used, like the NDI HX3 streaming capability. If you're not already planning to stream your footage to a separate monitor or production control room, you're paying for a capability you'll likely leave idle. There are a few practical trade-offs that only show up after you hook the unit up in a real-world environment. First, the cooling system runs a small fan that you'll hear when the unit is under load. In a quiet interview setup, that fan noise can bleed into your on-set audio, especially if you rely on the built-in speakers for monitoring. You can mitigate it by using external headphones, but that's an extra step you didn't anticipate when you first saw the spec sheet. Second, storage isn't as straightforward as plugging.